Have you found yourself watching this today? If so, it's important to recognize that what we're about to cover goes far beyond everyday conversations about currencies. This isn't just another rumor circulating through the community, nor is it something that should be dismissed without careful thought. There are periods in this space when endless speculation fills every discussion. Then there are quieter moments when meaningful developments begin taking shape behind closed doors. Right now, we appear to be entering one of those quieter but far more significant periods. Tier 4B has once again become part of the conversation. Whenever Tier 4B resurfaces, it immediately raises the seriousness surrounding discussions about the Iraqi Dinar and the Vietnamese dong. For many people following this journey, the road has been incredibly long. Some of you have tracked the IQD story for well over 10 years. Others joined the community later, learning each step as events unfolded while experiencing cycles of optimism, frustration, skepticism, and renewed confidence. Throughout those years, countless forecasts, projections, and timelines came and went without producing the expected outcome. That history is precisely why today's conversation deserves your attention. This isn't about creating excitement or chasing dramatic headlines. Instead, it's about examining where the financial system appears to be positioning itself at this point in time. The question nearly everyone is asking is straightforward, yet incredibly important. Could IQD and VND payments finally be approaching? To explore that question properly, we need to slow the pace and examine what Tier 4B truly represents, along with why experienced observers within large financial systems consider this phase so significant. Tier 4B is not where the process begins. Instead, it represents the final preparation stage before execution. It marks the point where planning has already been completed and operational readiness takes over. Once a system reaches Tier 4B, financial institutions are no longer debating whether an event could occur. Their attention shifts toward preparing for the manner in which it will unfold. That preparation involves validating internal rate visibility, confirming liquidity pathways, stress testing exchange infrastructure under realistic operating conditions, and ensuring every compliance procedure is fully established. These are expensive, time-intensive tasks that organizations simply do not undertake unless they expect genuine operational activity. That is exactly why Tier 4B attracts so much attention. At the present time, multiple indicators appear to align with this particular phase. Banking systems are receiving back-end enhancements, X-Tank platforms are undergoing extensive stress testing. Payment networks are being evaluated to ensure they can manage substantial transaction volumes. Internal conversations involving rate verification procedures are reportedly taking place quietly behind the scenes. These are not measures designed for speculation. They are measures designed for operational readiness. And readiness is the cornerstone of every significant financial transition. For holders of the Iraqi dinar, this stage carries particular importance. For years, the IQD has remained connected to Iraq's reconstruction efforts, monetary reform initiatives, oil revenue stabilization, and the country's gradual reintegration into the international banking system. For a long time, the central question wasn't simply about valuation. It was whether the global financial system would eventually be capable of processing dinar exchanges on a meaningful and organized scale. Movement associated with Tier 4B suggests that the infrastructure may now be approaching that level of capability. The Vietnamese dong also plays a role in this discussion, and that deserves careful attention. Vietnam's economy has continued expanding through manufacturing growth, export performance, and stronger international trade partnerships. When the VND is discussed alongside the IQD within Tier 4B conversations, it suggests that more than one currency may be advancing through the preparation process simultaneously. That type of alignment generally points toward coordinated system readiness rather than isolated developments. It's equally important to understand what Tier 4B does not mean. It does not indicate that payouts begin instantly. It does not suggest that everyone wakes up tomorrow with completed exchanges. What it does indicate is that the system appears to be standing at the threshold, It means financial institutions are preparing themselves to process transactions as soon as formal authorization is provided. Historically, once systems reach this level of readiness, the remaining timeline often becomes significantly shorter. Instead of measuring progress in years, attention shifts toward days or weeks. That is why preparation matters now more than ever. Preparation does not mean reacting with panic. It does not involve making rushed decisions without reliable information. Preparation means protecting your holdings, organizing your documentation, and making sure your banking relationships remain current and accurate. For individuals holding larger positions, enhanced verification procedures should be anticipated. That is standard practice in high-value financial activity and exists to safeguard both account holders and financial institutions alike. There is also an emotional side to this stage that should not be overlooked. Many holders have carried years of uncertainty, both internally and from outside opinions. Seeing Tier 4B discussed in a serious context is more than technical validation. For many, it also provides emotional reassurance. It suggests that years of patience may finally be beginning to align with genuine opportunity. Even so, this is exactly when discipline becomes more valuable than excitement. As public attention increases, so does the potential for misinformation, false claims, and fraudulent schemes. Any promise of guaranteed exchange rates, exclusive early access, or private exchange opportunities should be approached with extreme caution. Authentic financial processes operate through regulated banking institutions and official financial channels. Remaining calm, informed, and patient is one of the strongest advantages you can have during periods like this. This moment extends far beyond the interests of individual currency holders. Whenever large-scale currency processing begins, the effects are noticed throughout the broader financial world. Liquidity patterns evolve, exchange activity adjusts, and investor sentiment often shifts in response. That is why movement surrounding Tier 4B attracts attention internationally rather than remaining confined to Dinar communities alone. The potential impact reaches well beyond personal financial outcomes and into the behavior of the global marketplace. As events continue to unfold, the most valuable approach is to remain informed, stay level-headed, and continue exercising patience. Tier 4B does not promise a particular outcome, but it does indicate operational readiness. And readiness at this level is something that has not been observed for quite some time. As we continue, it's worth recognizing why readiness within the financial system often carries far greater significance than public headlines ever could. Most major financial developments are not introduced through dramatic announcements. They begin quietly behind the scenes as systems are aligned, tested, and synchronized. By the time the public becomes aware of them, much of the essential work has already been completed. That is precisely why Tier 4B holds such importance. It represents the internal stage where institutions have moved beyond discussing possibilities and are actively preparing for execution. For holders of the IQD and VND, this is the point where the conversation naturally shifts away from asking asterisk if something may happen and toward understanding asterisk how it could unfold. How will exchanges be processed? How will financial institutions manage transaction volume? How will compliance requirements be implemented throughout the process? Questions like these only become meaningful when systems are preparing for genuine participation. And that appears to be the direction events are moving today. Infrastructure readiness suggests that financial institutions are positioning themselves to serve legitimate holders through regulated banking channels rather than experimental or speculative frameworks. Now let's look more closely at what the exchange process could resemble if Tier 4B advances into full activation. In structured financial rollouts, exchanges are rarely completed all at once. Instead, they are introduced in carefully managed stages, monitored closely every step of the way. This allows banks to oversee liquidity, maintain security, satisfy compliance standards, and preserve the overall integrity of the process. Some participants may complete their exchanges earlier, while others could be scheduled later depending on verification requirements and transaction size. That is both normal and expected. At this stage, documentation becomes especially important. Proof of ownership, verification of funds, identity confirmation, and standard banking compliance procedures are all common requirements in high-value financial transactions. These requirements should not be viewed as obstacles. They exist to safeguard both the currency holder and the financial institution involved. Anyone who takes time now to organize records, confirm documentation, and ensure everything is accurate will likely experience a smoother process if exchanges move forward. Another subject that deserves careful attention is emotional decision-making. Periods like this naturally create excitement, uncertainty, and a sense of urgency. That combination can easily result in avoidable mistakes. The most successful holders are not necessarily the quickest to act. They are usually the individuals who prepare thoroughly and maintain discipline throughout the process. Remaining calm, confirming information carefully, and avoiding impulsive decisions can significantly influence long-term results. It's equally important to maintain realistic expectations. Tier 4B readiness does not automatically translate into immediate wealth or guaranteed success. What it represents is the possibility that opportunities are drawing closer. Actual outcomes will still depend on execution, regulatory compliance, timing, and the decisions made by each individual holder. Recognizing that distinction is extremely important. Those who remain patient and grounded generally navigate major financial transitions far more effectively than those driven primarily by emotion. From a broader perspective, this stage matters because it reflects confidence within the financial system itself. Banks do not dedicate substantial resources toward operational readiness unless they have confidence in the underlying process. That confidence is typically built upon months or even years of coordination behind the scenes, regulatory alignment, policy development, and institutional cooperation. When Tier 4B enters the discussion, it suggests that many of those foundational elements are beginning to converge. That is one of the reasons international observers are paying such close attention. Currency movement at this level has the potential to influence regional liquidity, trading activity, and broader investor positioning. The IQD and the VND do not exist independently from the global financial landscape. They are part of an interconnected international system, and meaningful processing activity involving either currency can create effects that extend far beyond individual participants. That is why this period carries significance beyond personal financial expectations. For those who have remained patient for years, sometimes wondering whether this journey would ever reach this stage, it is worth recognizing just how much has changed. Tier 4B represents proximity, it represents alignment. It represents operational readiness. None of that suggests rushing into decisions. Instead, it encourages recognizing the significance of the moment and responding with careful judgment. As developments continue, maintaining discipline with information becomes increasingly important. Not every update deserves your attention. Not every voice deserves your trust. Focus on consistent patterns rather than bold promises. Pay attention to system behavior instead of speculation. And remember that legitimate financial processes are almost always quiet before they become visible. In the next section, we'll examine timing more closely, discuss realistic expectations, explore practical strategies for holders, and look at how to remain mentally and financially prepared as this process continues to unfold.